Uncertainty is growing today around Trump's tariff war. The threat against Canada and Mexico is on pause for at least 30 days. But a 10% tariff on goods from China went into effect this morning. And Beijing is promising retaliatory measures that could kick in next week. A trade war between the world's two largest economies. Joining us now, Democratic Senator of Michigan, Gary Peters, who is a member of the Commerce Committee. Good to have you back on the program, Senator. Let's start in your home state because the auto industry accounts for, I think, about a fifth of Michigan's workforce. How concerned are you about any impact China's retaliatory tariffs could have on that sector in particular?
Well, we'll have to wait and see with the Chinese tariffs exactly where that's going to hit. I mean, obviously, our major concern was with Canada and Mexico, and in particular Canada. You know, we do a massive amount of trade in Michigan. In fact, we're probably the #1 state in terms of trade with Canada. In fact, the two of the three busiest border crossings in North America are in Michigan, both Detroit, Windsor, Port Huron, Sarnia, and the auto industry is very integrated with Canada. You'll have parts that will go back and forth sometimes many times. And so if those Canadian tariffs went into place, you would see definitely an increase in car prices, estimated anywhere from $1,000 to several thousands of dollars hitting consumers. It could have impact on jobs and production. It is something that simply can't go forward as is. And, you know, the auto industry would be impacted. And when that happens, it's a big deal for us in Michigan, but certainly for the country as well.
According to Fitch Ratings, Michigan is the state with the most imports from Canada, Mexico, and China as a percentage of their state GDP, 19%. Right. Give us a little more on the real world impact. And I'm thinking particularly the impact of uncertainty if there's a long-term back and forth of escalating, de-escalating, escalating tariffs, threats, back-offs, threats, back-offs.
Yeah, the impact of chaos is terrible for businesses trying to plan. You know, if you have some certainty, you can make plans and be able to adjust your business model. But with this kind of uncertainty, you can't do that. And that ends up actually costing more money. It also could potentially mean an impact to jobs. But if you have the tariffs in place, it certainly increases those prices. And so you can't govern this way. And the thing that is really, for me, I'm the lead Democrat on Homeland Security, and the president's threat about tariffs for both Canada and Mexico, and I'll just talk about Canada, was to have border security. I can tell you the Canadian government and what we see in the northern border where I live, they are great partners for us. In fact, they're on our Coast Guard vessels in the Great Lakes because of the shared border, working on border security. They have already made substantial investments in upgrading that as well. In fact, the announcement that they made is something they actually made back in December of over $1 billion of additional investments in border security. So to threaten economic chaos, to make life difficult for folks who go to work every day in the auto industry, it makes no sense of what we're seeing from the president. He needs to be focused on issues that bring down costs for Americans as opposed to increasing the cost is what we would actually get if he follows through. We still don't know. We have to wait 30 days to see if these tariffs are indeed going to go away. We don't know. And with uncertainty means increased cost.
Well, what Donald Trump and his supporters would argue is that the administration got both Mexico and Canada to put more security at the border, to amp up the presence there. So does tough talk work?
Well, in the case of just Canada, what they got is what actually Canada announced last year. Basically, an additional $1 billion. It was December when they announced it, before Donald Trump made this threat against our friend. Now, let me just step back. You know, I work with Canadians all the time, and Canadians are our neighbor. They're our closest ally and friend, and they feel betrayed that when you're a good friend, you don't expect your good friend to try to hurt your economy. And the other thing to remember about Canada is if you take energy out, we actually have a trade surplus with Canada. We sell more to Canada than they buy from us, with the exception of oil. And if you're looking at getting oil, if we're not going to have oil in the United States, if I'm going to buy from another country, it's a lot better buying from Canada, our closest friend and ally, than other countries that provide oil to our country. So this is a move by the president that makes no sense whatsoever, and it harms what is a great relationship with our neighbor and friend, Canada.
Let me ask you about domestic politics, because you shocked political watchers when you said you were not going to run for re-election. You said it's time to pass the torch to the next generation, although I think by Senate standards, you're not old. So there is concern that you've made it harder for Democrats to control the Senate. Did that weigh on you, Senator? And how much of your decision was influenced by the overall political climate?
No, actually, it wasn't. This is a decision that my wife, Colleen, and I made after a lot of thinking about another chapter. And I've always believed from the day that I got sworn in and ran for Congress back in 2008 that I wouldn't do this the rest of my life. I would do what our founders thought members of Congress would do, which is come in as citizens, serve a few terms, and then go back to private life. And that's what I'm doing. But I also feel good. We're going to hold Michigan. Clearly, it's a battleground state, but I believe we're going to have a good year next year. It's a midterm. We've got the president in the White House. His party normally doesn't do well, and I think when we're seeing the kind of chaos we're seeing right now, Democrats will do well next year. And we have a very deep bench in Michigan. We've got a lot of young, dynamic, Democratic leaders that can step up. So I'm confident we'll keep Michigan in the blue column. Obviously, we always have to work in Michigan. Nothing can be taken for granted. But this is a good time for me to pass the torch and bring new energy, new ideas into the nation's capital.
Well, there's certainly more than a few people who want to take your job, Senator. I don't have to tell you that. Are you endorsing anyone who's running to replace you? Is there someone you think has the most certain chance of keeping that seat for the Democrats?
Well, we have a lot of people now looking at it. I think we're going to have a lot of folks that'll raise their hand. You know, as you know, I headed up the Democratic campaign arm for the Senate over the last 2 cycles, and sometimes we have to go out and recruit candidates. We're not going to have to do that in Michigan. A lot of people are going to raise their hand, and they're all very good, and so I'm very excited about the future.
A senator, at least for a couple more years, and a diplomat, Michigan Senator Gary Peters, thank you for your time, sir. Appreciate it.
Great to be with you.